U.S. Senator Tom Coburn is a Republican from Oklahoma. In fact, apparently, news stories saying that one of the reasons that this effort to put together a bipartisan budget deficit reduction plan has made the ground it has is that Senator Coburn rejoined the group after winning concessions on additional cuts to costly federal health care program. And let's point out that he himself was a practicing physician before he ran for the Senate. He knows a great deal about this industry and what we need to do with it. Senator Coburn, so great to have you on the show today.
Oh, Kathleen, it's great to be on your show. I get to listen to it when I'm driving in Oklahoma because I've got a satellite radio, and Bloomberg's what I tune into.
Well, we're so glad to hear that. And, of course, we are fascinated by all of these topics. So tell us what has happened. The president making favorable comments. What are the key parts of this plan you've put together?
In terms of the Gang of Six?
Yes, sir.
Well, it does several things. One is it gets us real caps that are enforceable on spending, which is something Washington's never seen. Number two is it will save us $3.7 trillion over the next 10 years, which is a good start towards our program. And those are real dollars. Those aren't funny money, mirror, smoke, confusing numbers. They're against the baseline right now. It's a marked reduction in both corporate tax rates and other rates by taking away a lot of tax expenditures and tax credits, but lowering the rates and broadening the base. And what we got this morning, we had a meeting of over 50 senators and got really significant buy-in for what we were doing.
So is this the president, favorable comments? Is it really possible that Republicans, Democrats, the White House, the Senate, the House can come together on something like this?
I think so. I think what it would have to be in connection with, this is a difficult thing to do to reform the tax code. It's difficult to make the changes in Medicare and Medicaid that need to be changed. It's difficult to get the procedures done to do the caps. So what I would envision is something like this go through in a couple of stages where a debt limit extension would be granted for like 6 months until all of this can happen. It's mandated to happen. And if it doesn't happen within that time period, of course, we're back to where we are today. But you'd at least have $500 billion in spending you're not going to have. And you have a great hope that you have a bipartisan group of senators and hopefully House members that say we can get this done, and it will be, most importantly, it'll send two signals. One is it'll create some clarity and certainty for the financial markets. Number two is it'll markedly increase the capital investment in this country because now they see that clarity. And then finally, what it will do is give us a way forward. This doesn't solve all our problems, but it starts us down the road rather than what was getting ready to happen is kicking the can down the road.
So technically, this is no way part of the vote to raise the debt ceiling, but in terms of laying a policy groundwork, this is something that you and your colleagues, Republicans and Democrats, see as a blueprint that could allow a majority in both houses to sign on to, theoretically, in order to get the debt ceiling passed in advance of that August 2nd.
Yeah, and I think for it to actually pass, you would have to tie it, any debt limit extension, to the condition that the conditions put forth in the instructions in this bill have to happen. And if they happen, then the debt limit continues on through as the president would like. If they doesn't happen, we're right back where we were in late January, February of next year.
How does it compare to the House Republicans' cut, cap, and balance?
Well, it probably, if you look out in 10 years, it probably isn't as aggressive and doesn't get us to the point that we need to get in the country. We actually need $9 trillion. Eliminated from the federal government over the next 10 years. But it's a good start. And, you have divided government now. We're certainly not going to get everything my way. I would like to see us go on and do the $9 trillion in adjustments and phase them in so we have the least amount of effect on the, negative effect on the economy. But I think you'd see us boom economically if we were to do that. But this is a good step forward. It's $3.7 trillion of real savings. It's not games like you see in Washington so often. So, but it's probably somewhat less than the cut, cap, and balance. The problem, the political problem with cut, cap, and balance is we have a lot of members who don't believe that the federal government ought to be on a diet, and we should have a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. And so I think they ought to have to vote against it, and I think they're going to get a vote against it this week. But if we really wanted to solve our problems, Washington can't help itself. And the only way you can really help yourself is to put a fence around us that say you can only borrow in times of national emergency. You have to have a balanced budget.
Well, there's been some fairly adamant, and again, maybe it's just part of the back and forth getting to something like this, but Democratic Senator Harry Reid has said that, really no problem funding Social Security and Medicare. Many leading Democrats say they're not going to go there, but the Gang of Six has 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans. So is there a sense with your Democratic colleagues that this is the kind of deal that people like Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi will sign on to?
They'll get pulled to it. They'll have to. Look, Medicare, to any Medicare patient listening to you today, we want to make sure we keep commitments that affordable health care is out there and it's available. But there's nobody in the world that's going to loan us the money to keep Medicare going as it is. They're not going to do it. And the same is true. Social Security is a different issue. We've stolen $2.6 trillion from it over the last 40 years in this country, going back to Lyndon Johnson. And we have to, the reason Social Security has to be made sustainable is because when the credit markets look at us, they say, well, you got this unending thing where you're going to be going in the hole, and if we're going to loan you more money for it, you have to make it viable. So we have that on a completely separate track, but it'll have to be done as well.
How encouraged are you by the president basically endorsing this? He says it's broadly consistent with the approach being worked on by his administration, called it good news, a very significant step. Well, I think what it does is allow everybody to jump onto something that they have some comfort with, and it gives everybody that was way out there some political cover. Unfortunately, rather than doing the best right thing for our country, people look for political cover, and I think that's what you've got. It probably is the sweet spot that we can build a consensus around and get something done. So how aggressively and how quickly would you envision moving on reforming the corporate tax code? Seems there's a lot of support for that, including in corporate America. Is the political will there to simplify, to remove deductions, and maybe even then be able to lower the corporate tax code? Yeah, the instructions from this bill would say that the corporate tax rate has to align with the highest rate in the country for individuals, and that would be somewhere between 23 and 29%, depending on what the committee does or any group of senators does to reform that. So you would see that brought down significantly in a revenue-neutral way initially, but a revenue-positive way in the long run because of the dynamic effects for it, and also the savings that are going to near to the corporations in terms of increased capital because they're going to be paying lower taxes. Senator Coburn, you've been in Washington for a while. What about the lobbyists? What about all the money that goes in to try to stop these kind of changes? Well, I have no doubt. One of the things that we have in here, we want to limit the amount of deduction you can take on a mortgage deduction up to $500,000. You can't do it on your vacation home anymore. So we're going to have a lot of people fighting that, but we preserve most of the significant tax expenditures that are most important to most people. So there's no question there's going to be all sorts of people who don't want a deal to get done because it may gore their ox. The thing about this program is everybody has a little pain in it. Well, I guess that's the definition of shared sacrifice. Senator Tom Coburn, thank you so very much. We'll look forward to having you back soon. All right. Good to talk with you, Kathleen.